Hi, my name's Daisy, and in this video I'm explaining the 4 different types of opposition. So, there's basic opposition, there's long distance opposition, there's diagonal opposition, and there's even opposition when the kings are on totally random squares of the board and they don't seem to connect at all. So what I'll start off with is basic opposition, because the other 3 types of opposition are aiming to get this position. In this scenario, we have a case of basic opposition. This is basic opposition because the kings are vertically apart. They can also be horizontally apart, by the way, but they just can't be any other type of across, if that makes sense. But they're 1 square apart from each other, and both kings cannot move to these 3 squares. Now that changes when we make it someone's turn to move. So the rule here is whoever's turn to move it is, the other person has the opposition. If it's black's turn to move, then white has the opposition. And the whole reason for this is that when black moves to the side, black gives up one of the 3 squares. And that's what opposition tries to do. Opposition is trying to gain control of one of the 3 squares that are in front of your king when your opponent's king is trying to block them. Now, you may ask, well, how is this relevant? Well, let's take a look at this position that I'm going to set up. Who wins, who loses, or who draws? Take a second to think. Now, if you said that white wins, then you're wrong. And if you said that black wins, then you're totally wrong. There's only one left. So maybe if you said a draw, you might be right. Wrong. If you said that it's a draw, you're also wrong. And that's because it depends on whose turn it is to move. I never said if it was white to move or black to move. And it makes a huge difference here. In this position, let's say that white has the opposition. So if white has the opposition, whose turn is it to move? If you said black, you would be correct. So when black scooches over, white gains control of this crucial square, and just like that, white is going to be able to take this pawn and promote it safely. And boom, white wins. Now if we go back, now let's say that it's white's turn to move. Now it becomes a draw, because the black king has the opposition. And what the black king is going to do is the black king is going to either stay in front of the king, or the black king is going to stay in front of the pawn. And just like that, it's going to end up being a draw. And I will also play this out. And just like that, this is a stalemate, because the black king can't move here or here, because the pawn guards those 2 squares. And the black king also can't move here or here, because the white king guards those 2 squares. So that is the whole reason why opposition is so important. But now let's take a look at the other forms of opposition. So in long distance opposition, you have to count the squares in between your and your opponent's king. So we count here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is an even number. And to have opposition, you want to have an even number of squares between your and your opponent's king, and you want it to be your move. So we move the kings up 1 by 1. White has the opposition because, again, we're in this position where the 2 kings are vertically across and there's 1 square in between. And now black has to scooch over, or black can even move back, but that gives up control of all 3 squares. Either way, black gives up control of one of the 3 key squares, and white is able to infiltrate. So the rule here is that if there's an even number of squares between your and your opponent's king and it is your turn to move, then you have the diagonal opposition. And conversely, if there's an odd number of squares in between your and your opponent's king and it's your turn to move, then you don't have the diagonal opposition. So in this position, 1 is an odd number, and if white moves over, black has the opposition. If we go back, let's say that it's black's turn to move. Let's say that black moves back. Well, now white has the opposition. And now let's go all the way over here. Let's say that it's white's turn to move. Who's going to have the opposition? 1, 2, 3 squares in between, and 3 is odd. So if you counted correctly, then black should have the opposition. And when we play it out, that is true. We'll do one more example. Let's say the kings are over here, and it's black's turn to move. Who has the opposition? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares in between. 6 is even, so we play it out. We see that black has the opposition. The last form of opposition is opposition without a direct connection, and I'm going to call this the magic square method. So what we want to do is we want to make a rectangle with the corners all on the same color of our opposing king's square color. So right now the opposing king is on a dark square, so C3 creates a box that has corners of all dark squares. And whatever we do, we're going to continue this box. If the king moves over, now we make the box, but this time we make it with light squares. Notice how all the corners of the box are light squares. And now if the black king moves up, again, we're going to make this box, and look how all the corner squares are dark. But also notice that this is a familiar position. It's black's turn to move right now, and this is diagonal opposition. When black moves, white is going to get the opposition. Let's do another example. Let's say black wants to get the opposition. So if black wants to get the opposition, then it has to be black to move so that black can create that box first. So we'll say that it's black to move. Black moves over here and creates the box. And notice how again, we have diagonal opposition. So a lot of these types of opposition, they're going to overlap, and we're all going to get to the same position in the end. If white's king moves up, well, again, we have to create the box. And here's the new box with corner squares that are all dark. Again, we have diagonal opposition going on. Let's say the white king moves in. Well, the black king will move in, creating diagonal opposition, but also creating this box once again. And when the white king moves over, black has the opposition. So those are all 4 types of opposition explained. I hope that this video was helpful for you. If it was, please leave a comment down below because it really helps. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye!